Me and Chops are gonna turn childhood classics into horrifying nightmares, and at the end, we'll see who did it better. Starting with Spider-Man, and I decided we could choose any Spider-Man movie, and since we're making horror posters, I thought I'd use Noir Spider-Man from Into the Spider-Verse as my main character. So let's start off by adding the character, and then make a box for the ground. Next, I'll add a few more boxes and a shape on top of that, which will eventually look like the top of a building after I add some textures and shadows. Let's add a cloudy sky in the background, and then I'll try to make some buildings by making some cubes and adding windows, but this is gonna take a while, so let's go see what Chops is up to.
Peter Parker's just a teenager, and where do teenagers belong? In school. So I'm using this nice, ordinary school corridor as the background. I'm making it nighttime, because according to my 5 minutes of research, that's when all the good horror posters happen. So I'm adding this nighttime LUT to set the mood. Now, the corridor is looking a bit too empty. Time to fix that. I'm starting with this cocooned guy who's just gonna quietly sit over in the corner. I'm just adjusting the perspective a little so everything matches up. Now he's looking pretty lonely, so let's give him a friend. Actually, what if they don't get along? Better give them another friend, just in case. I'm also going to puppet warp him too, just so they don't look the same. Alright, perfect. Now I just need to add in some shadows, then we can get to the real stuff.
I finally finished making the buildings, so let's go over them and the background with a soft brush to add some haze and give the image more depth. I also blurred the buildings more the farther back they were, but let's bring Spider-Man back and fix the colors on him. I'm also going to add a few highlights on his sides, and if you're wondering, yes, I am going to make this entire image in the same style as Noir, because I know I kind of have to lock in to take this crown from Chops because, well, he is the originator of this trend. Anyways, let's add some blood to his fists and maybe some on his jacket cape thing. I'll change the blending mode and then add some more on his shirt under the cape, which I'll make bleed into the outside cape.
Okay, this is a Spider-Man movie after all. It would be criminal not to add some spiderwebs, so I'm blending this one in. Let's start by putting this over here at the front. This corridor is pretty massive, so I'm going to need a lot of these webs. Basically, I'm trying to erase every last trace of the original corridor. Once I've got the basic web structure down, then I can start layering in more textures. Okay, I think that's enough, but it still looks quite lonely in there. So I found this human cocoon, and I'm going to decorate the ceiling with it. Oh, it's a bit brown, so it doesn't match the lighting. I'm going to desaturate it a little bit, and let's lighten it up. Perfect. And once I add a shadow to the side of it, I can start decorating the ceiling with them. So one over here, and another here. And let's puppet warp this one so they're not all the same. And let's put another up here. Okay, this should be enough, people. I do actually want to put Spider-Man himself in this corridor, but I want him to be mysterious. So I'm using this image where only his eyes are showing, and I'm going to place him in this doorway here. Perfect. Now all he needs is some glowing eyes. I don't want them to be too glowy, so this should be enough. Now I'm thinking of calling this movie The Spider-Man. I've downloaded this handwritten text, which I think looks really scary, but I think the white is a little too bright, so I'm going to switch it to black. And finally, let's add the above it.
I added some shadows coming from our Peter Parker, but this entire image is pretty much blue, so let's change the background to red, which means I'll have to fix the colors on the buildings and add some red highlights onto the character. After finishing that, I'll add the Sony Pictures animation logo at the bottom and a cool little Spider-Man mask above that. Now let's type Spider-Man in the same font as this Amazing Spider-Man title, and let's not worry about the colors for now, so let's also type Noir in a, well, Noir font, and then I'll add an arc to the Spider-Man text. The final thing I'll do is add a halftone texture to the background, which replicates the character's look, and then add that same thing onto the Spider-Man text, which also adds a nice Spider-Man looking color. I did the same with the Noir text, but finally added a camera raw filter to bring it all together. So here is Spider-Man, but horror. Let us know in the comments whose poster is better and why, but let's move on to another masterpiece of a movie, and that is WALL-E, which actually already has a pretty good setting for a horror movie, so let's make this cute robot a little more terrifying. First, I'll start off by adding a picture of the trash city from the movie and then put it at the top of the image. I'll add an image of a lonely dirt path and fade them together a bit. But next, let's make the colors on the images match each other and then make it more blurry in the back. Next, let's start cutting out WALL-E from this image, which is actually going to take a pretty long time. So let's see what Chops is doing.
So as WALL-E takes place during an apocalypse, I think it's only fitting to start there. Let's expand the image. Okay, perfect. Now let's get started. So I need our main character, and in this case the villain. Let's cut him out and place him over here, and I'm going to need a victim. Sadly, it's this dude. He needs extracting from his chair, so I'm just going to go ahead and select him. I know I've messed up his mask. Let me just warp him and I'll fix it in a sec. So I want him to be lying down. Can you see what I'm trying to do? Now as he's very much sitting up right now, let's puppet warp him so he's lying down. I should probably fix the mask now. So let's smoothen his back part here. And it looks like someone's just taken a bite out of his arm, so I'm just going to fill it in. That looks normal, I think. Okay, now let's move the attention back to WALL-E. His arm is facing the wrong way, so I'm going to kindly remove his arm. And now let's fill that hole in his chest. Okay, this doesn't have to be too accurate as I'm going to be covering it up with his arm. So let's bring the arm back and rotate it around so that it's facing the back. Okay, perfect. Maybe let's stretch it a little. And let's draw in a little rope that leads to his neck.
I finally finished cutting out WALL-E, but he's not very scary yet, so let's remove both of his arms so that we can place a saw on the right side. Let's also cut out this bolt from a real saw and then place it in the middle of our saw to connect it to WALL-E. I'll add a little shadow onto WALL-E coming from the blade, but now let's add a torch on the left side. Then I'll come back to the blade and add some blood. I'll make a new file and create a cube of trash to put on the right side of the image and then fix the colors. I'll add a shadow for that and the wheels on WALL-E, but let's also make the cube a little more gross as well. I added a little puddle below it and then put Eve behind the cube and then made her eyes look kind of mad and then turned them red. Let's also draw over WALL-E's eyes with the brush tool and then change the blending mode to make his eyes red as well, and then we'll make them glow a little bit.
So I've got everything in place now. I now need to add some shadows. Let's start under the dude's belly. Just like this. And now just some under WALL-E. That's looking all good. Now it's time to get scientific and add some tracks in the sand. So I'm just selecting the tracks for both his tires. With those two done, I'm gonna just draw in the tracks. And that should be enough. Let's blend in the tracks now. Perfect. Now to make it look a little more realistic, I'm going to blur the tracks ever so slightly. Now I need to make the marks the body would make. I'm not actually sure how you would create those marks, so I'm going to try and just draw out the path. Something a little like this. Let's blend that in, and I'm going to just lower the opacity a little. I guess that works. I want to use the original title, as I think it has potential to be scary. So I want it up here, and as the end bit is red, I'm going to use liquify to make it drip a little. Just need to make sure I don't warp the letter. Okay, I think that's enough dripping. Oh, and I nearly forgot. Let's shut his eyes so it looks like he's actually, you know, dead.
I'm gonna add a bunch of highlights coming from the fire and WALL-E's eyes, so let's just speed this part up. I changed the color of the blade to gold, but now let's add the title and make it look more scary by adding a bevel and emboss with some textures. I'm also going to put the Disney Pixar logo above it and make it yellow, but finally let's add a camera raw filter. So this is WALL-E, but horror. Once again, don't forget to comment which poster you think is better, and we also made a similar video on Chops' channel, so don't forget to check that out, and subscribe for more videos in the future.